Welcome everyone to the Ready for the Draft podcast. I am your host, Gregg Schutze. This is episode 2 of the 2024 podcast series where we take a look at the draft eligible prospects and get you ready for the NFL draft. And look, the preseason leading up to the start of the college football season is in full swing. Week 0 of college football is 1 week away. So ramping up and getting ready for the season, we've got to start doing that now. So we're going to have some podcasts going fast and furious, breaking down some of the Power 5 conferences. We'll also take a look at the Group of 5. We can't leave them out. Really want to take a look at the SEC with episode number 2. I mean, SEC, look, that's where the champions are made, right? I mean, that's really what we've seen with Georgia and Alabama. Are those two teams vulnerable? Are they going to be potentially knocked off the throne? You know, you're looking at LSU, Ole Miss in the West. You got Tennessee, South Carolina possibly in the East. I think Georgia probably has the easier ride to the SEC championship more so than Bama. I think there are some tougher teams there at the top of the group. Not really sure exactly what we're going to get out of Texas A&M either. Really going to be an interesting year in the SEC. So let's go ahead and jump into things, do our conference outlook, really talk about the draft eligible prospects in the SEC. And obviously, you know, one of the questions that you have to have is who's going to be the top quarterback in this year's draft class in the SEC. You got Jayden Daniels there out of LSU. I think KJ Jefferson of Arkansas, Spencer Rattler of South Carolina. Those are the 3 incumbents, right? They're already in the league. Jayden Daniels is a guy, to me, I thought, you know, up and down, really struggled to develop chemistry with Kayshon Boutte, but I love the chemistry with both the receiver Malik Nabers and the tight end Mason Taylor. But it was one of those things to where the accuracy seemed to be missing at times. You see the mobility there. You see his ability to make plays. KJ Jefferson is a big physical guy. I still see him more as an athlete that happens to be playing quarterback. He's big. He's physical. You see the quarterback runs. He does throw a really nice deep ball, but I still think consistency is a huge issue for him. And then Spencer Rattler. If you want to talk about a guy that isn't very consistent, Spencer Rattler is going to be your guy. First half of the season, he really struggled, especially with decision-making, a lot of the interceptions. But then you saw him down the stretch and what South Carolina was able to do against top 10 opponents back-to-back weeks in November, beating Tennessee. And not only did they beat Tennessee, they put a whooping on them, 63-38. Then they come back and beat Clemson 31-30. So which quarterback are you going to see there? If Spencer Rattler can elevate his game, then I think that's one of the things SEC East, South Carolina is going to be knocking at the door towards the top. So those are really kind of the quarterbacks to keep an eye out for. But Kentucky, Devin Leary coming in from NC State. We know that he went down to an injury a season ago. He leaves the Wolfpack, comes to the SEC, taking over for the departed Will Levis, the Titans' second-round pick. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he really immerses himself within the SEC. You also have Florida and Graham Mertz. I thought Mertz struggled there, moving that offense there at Wisconsin. I think really allowing him to throw the football around the yard a little bit more. Really want to see what he can do there with the Gators. And then Jackson Dart there at Ole Miss. Can he stay healthy? What are we really going to see with him there? I think there are going to be some question marks there with Lane Kiffin's offense. But look, you know, we know it's going to be explosive. We know they've got a tremendous running back. So Jackson Dart, another, you know, look, second year in Lane Kiffin's offense, only a junior. So he likely could come back to the SEC for one more season unless he has a huge year and is one of those guys that kind of sneaks into things. And then obviously Tennessee and Joe Milton. Joe Milton could very well be this year's Anthony Richardson. Big, physical dude, has a cannon for an arm, struggles with some of his accuracy. So, I mean, it's almost like a carbon copy, if you will. But when we talk about the teams and we look at really what to expect and who to keep an eye out for as we go team by team, we have to start with the defending national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously at the quarterback position, you've got Stetson Bennett moving on to the league. He's playing with the LA Rams. So now you're looking at Carson Beck coming in, and I see some people already putting Carson Beck in their rankings. I'm not going to even put him into my quarterback rankings because, look, this is a guy who threw 35 passes a season ago. Yeah, he threw for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. But look, we haven't seen enough of Carson Beck at the FBS level, going up against Power 5 schools week after week. I'm not going to do that. I just don't believe in putting a quarterback in your rankings when you really haven't seen what he can do at this level. So that's going to be the big question mark. What are we going to see out of Carson Beck? I think the receiving core, obviously A.D. Mitchell is gone. He's at Texas now. But you get Ladd McConkey and obviously the generational talent that is Brock Bowers at tight end. Bowers is kind of changing the game. 63 catches, 942 yards, 7 touchdowns. McConkey adds another 762 yards and 7 touchdowns as well. But with Brock Bowers, what you got, 6'4", 230 pounds. The junior, is he going to be a top 10 pick? That's going to be the big question mark. I've been talking about it. I mentioned it last podcast as well. You haven't seen a guy that size come off the board in the top 10, but we also said the same thing about Bryce Young a season ago, and you see what Bryce Young was able to do. Not only did he go off the board in the top 10, he went number 1 overall. Not going to say Bowers is going to go number 1 overall, but he could very well end up being a top 10 pick because he changes the game at that tight end position. Ladd McConkey, excellent route runner, very smooth guy, deceptive speed. I think that's really one of the big things, but the route running is absolutely there. And then you're bringing in Dominic Lovick from Missouri, 5'10", 170 pounds. Nice slot receiver there as a junior. I think he'll likely come back for another year there with the Bulldogs. But, same with McConkey. He could come back and decide he wants to come back for one more year. But the receiving core, I think really you're going to see Bowers, McConkey, and Levitt really be the guys in that group. At the running back position, Kendall Milton, 6'1", 220, the senior. You got Daijun Edwards. Milton, look, 7 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns under his belt. And then with Edwards, another 769 yards. So these guys know how to churn out yards. And look, we know what Georgia has. They always have a running back by committee. Not going to be anything different with these two seniors. So I think the running game is going to be in good hands as well. It's going to be that offensive line. What are we going to see there? Obviously, with Broderick Jones leaving for the league, you've got Ernest Green III, the freshman, 6'4", 330 pounds. Is he going to be their left tackle? Are we going to see Amarius Mims move in there? Now, look, Mims, this is going to be his chance to really break out. He's 6'7", 330 pounds. The junior, probably going to play right tackle, and really want to see what this guy can do at that right tackle spot. This is going to be his chance to really have that breakout year, and could potentially find his way into that first round conversation. I think up front as well, you got Cedric Van Pran, the 6'4", 310-pound junior center. He's the top pivot in the draft. Technically sound, does a really good job anchoring, hand placement. He's a guy to really watch out for. Xavier Trust, another big dude at 6'7", 320. Tackle, guard. He'll probably end up playing left guard. And then Tate Ratledge, a big physical guy. He's a junior right guard. He's another guy to really keep an eye out for on that offensive front. Then you get to the defense. And the defense is going to be an interesting group. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, there's a reason why he ended up being a Butkus Award finalist. 70 tackles, second on the team, but led the team in tackles for loss with 9. The junior, 6'1", 245, has tremendous range. He'll be teaming up with Smell Mondin, the 6'3", 220-pound inside linebacker. Look, pair of juniors, these are the guys that are going to be flying around, making plays, both against the run and the pass. Really interesting to see what happens there. As edge rushers, you've got Michael Williams. He's only a sophomore, but he's going to be the next great defensive end to come out of Georgia. Nazir Stackhouse, the nose tackle, 6'3", 320 pounds. With what you're getting with Stackhouse is a guy who's going to be big. He's going to be physical. He's going to be plugging gaps. He's not a guy that's going to be a pass rusher by any means, but a guy that could definitely take up a lot of space and really free things up for the linebackers playing behind him. Marvin Jones Jr., look, only a sophomore, but a guy who could be a menace coming off the edge as well. But I think Williams and Jones can't be the only guys putting pressure on the quarterback. They're really going to have to find another guy who can really push the pocket and get after the quarterback. Is it going to be Warren Brinson's time? He's a senior now, 6'5", 305. They run that committee up front. A lot of different guys with that rotation. Brinson's been a rotational player. He'll get a chance to start finally. But then you look at that secondary, and yes, you lose Christopher Smith, the safety, and you lose Keely Ringo. You lose some of that veteran leadership. But look, you got Javon Bullard, who was the national title defensive MVP. He can play safety, he can play corner. You love the versatility there. And then Kamari Lassiter. Look, with all the what happened with Ringo getting beat left and right, you've got Lassiter out there on the outside. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, a guy that has pretty good length, and a guy that, look, people would rather throw at Keely Ringo than Kamari Lassiter. So when I look at that secondary, I think Lassiter and Bullard, both draft eligible, both guys that I'm really excited about, and guys that I think can really make some noise and move their way into that day 2 consideration. With Bullard, he's only a junior, but I think with a solid year under his belt, especially with the way that he ended things last year, I think that Bullard is going to be a guy that's going to sneak his way potentially even into round number 2. So that's the Georgia Bulldogs. From there, obviously, we got to talk about Bama. I mean, when it's the SEC, you have to be talking about the Crimson Tide. That's SEC royalty, if you will. The question is really going to be who's playing quarterback. Is it going to be Tyler Buckner, the transfer from Notre Dame? You got Jalen Milroe there, the redshirt freshman, Ty Simpson. I think it's going to be interesting keeping an eye there. I think whoever's going to be quarterback, look, you got Ja'Cory Brooks, who's got really good range. Jermaine Burton was the guy that came from Georgia, and everyone was expecting him to be the breakout star for Bama. Just didn't happen. What are we going to see in Burton in his second season there with the Tide? Kobe Prentice, another sophomore that's starting to build. But in terms of the draft class, I think when you look at Jace McClellan, 5'11", 212 pounds, physical back, a guy that's really going to look to pound the ball between the tackles, has a little bit of that burst on the outside as well. 655 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns as kind of the second fiddle there to Jahmyr Gibbs. So he'll be a guy that I think is really going to be a focal point of that offense, really allow him to run the football quite a bit. When you look at that offensive line, a lot of unknowns there, really a lot of question marks, if I'm being perfectly honest. When you look at that right tackle position, though, J.C. Latham, 6'6", 335 pounds, the junior, a lot of penalties a season ago. He's got to clean that up, but you see the athleticism, you see the easy movement to go along with the power. He has a chance to end up being a top 10 pick. I really believe that. Now, when I look at the defense as well, I still see some question marks. Obviously you don't have Will Anderson Jr., so Dallas Turner is going to have to be the guy that's going to elevate his game. That's really going to be the big question mark. What are we going to see there? Turner had just 4 sacks a season ago, but this is a guy, look, as a true freshman, I think it was 8.5 sacks. He can really get after the quarterback. 6'4", 242, the junior. Another big year from him getting after the quarterback, and I think Dallas Turner, we can probably solidify his status as a top 10 pick. Edge rusher coming off the edge. He'll be teaming up with Chris Braswell. Look, 6'3", 255 pounds. Braswell was another guy, has shown that he can get after the quarterback. He was more of a situational guy, though. We didn't see Braswell on the field all that often. It was really more, like I said, the pass rush, 6'3", 220 pounds. Really, when you have Will Anderson and you have Dallas Turner, he's not going to see the field a whole lot. So he only had 2.5 sacks, but a guy that I think has that ability to come off the edge. But they don't have the superstar in Will Anderson, so that's going to be the big question mark. What are we going to see there coming after the quarterback? Inside backers, kind of the same deal. They get Tresman Marshall to transfer from Georgia, 6'1", 236 pounds. But look, he and Deontay Lawson not proven. That's going to be a question mark for me. The guys up front, Tim Smith, 6'4", 302. Justin Boygby, at 6'5", 292 pounds. Those two defensive ends, I don't see them on the same level as Byron Young. But really, the guy is going to be the nose guard, Jaheim Otis. I mean, this kid is 6'5", 328 pounds. He's big. He's physical. He's going to be the next nasty dude in the middle of that defense for the Crimson Tide. But look, I think there are a lot of question marks. And that's really something that I'm waiting for Bama. There's going to be some young guys. There's going to be some guys that, look, they haven't been huge starters. That's going to be the question. But, I think Otis is going to have a huge year. Tim Smith, look, a lot of potential, but we just haven't seen enough from him really getting after the quarterback. And look, with at Boygby, he's battling a neck injury from a season ago. So there are some question marks up front. In the secondary, obviously you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, 6'1", 195 pounds. I think he had 18 pass breakups to lead the FBS. This is a guy, to me, he's primed for another big year. I think he's going to showcase his return ability as well. McKinstry, to me, is going to be a top 10 pick. We could write that down right now. Terrion Arnold, the sophomore, Look, 6 foot, 196 pounds. We'll be talking about him in next year's draft. This guy has, really tremendous ball skills. Malachi Moore. This guy was kind of the forgotten man playing in the secondary with Brian Branch, but now you've got Moore, 6 foot, 198 pounds, strong safety. He'll be the next safety that we're going to be talking about, obviously, with Jordan Battle and then Brian Branch. Now it's going to be Malachi Moore, but I think he needs to continue to elevate his game. I think he's going to step right in and be able to play well, but he's a guy that I still, have some reservations about. Can he elevate his game to that level, to that status? The next team that we really have to talk about after that is going to be LSU, the Tigers. I think they're going to be the biggest threat, if you will, there in the SEC when you're talking about Alabama. We talked about Jayden Daniels. This is a guy, look, he's athletic. He came over from Arizona State. You see his ability to distribute the ball a little bit. He started to come on at the end of the year. I saw that, he completed 10 of 11 passes for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns in the spring game. So there's really a lot to like here. I think there's just some holes in his game. I think another year there with Brian Kelly, it's really going to be a lot of fun to watch. Then you look at a guy like Malik Nabers. This receiver, 72 receptions, over 1,000 yards. He's smooth, fluid, excellent route runner. Speed to take the top off of a defense as well. 6'1", 199 pounds. Could he be a first-round pick? I think it's possible. Likely going to come off the board early day 2 right now. Kyron Lacey has a chance to have a big year. He's 6'2", 212 pounds. He'll be a guy to keep an eye on as well at that receiver position. Look, Mason Taylor, the son of Hall of Famer Jason Taylor. Keep an eye out for him in next year's draft. 6'5", 245. I'm expecting a huge year from him as well. The only guy that I really see coming out this year up front for them, because obviously Will Campbell, only a sophomore, 6'6", 325. He's a guy that I think could end up really being that anchor on that offensive line. But then, I think the only guy, like I said, that would be coming out is going to be the center, Charles Turner, 6'4", 295, returning starter. But a lot of young guys up front, so there's a lot to like for LSU going forward as well. Defensively, though, obviously you've got Mason Smith. That's going to be the big X factor, big number 0 there in the middle of that defense. 6'6", 310 pounds, had 4 sacks as a true freshman. Then he tears his ACL in the first game against Florida State. But this is a guy who could be a game wrecker. He could be, the type of talent that Jalen Carter was for Georgia. Can he be that game wrecker? If so, I think he's a guy that could definitely slide into that top 10 overall. Mekhi Wingo is another guy battling a shoulder injury, kind of an undersized defensive tackle, 6'1", 295, but he's a guy, look, he's a junior, could potentially be a day 2 pick if he decides to come out, if he has a big year. We know that Harold Perkins Jr. at that linebacker spot, this dude can get after the quarterback and has energy for days, 7.5 sacks, a guy that, look, he also very active, 72 tackles, but he's not draft eligible. 6'1", 220 pounds, very explosive, bends very well. A guy that, look, the second half of the season just really turned things loose and was a freshman All-American. Then you look at Omar Spates. This is a guy coming from Oregon State as a transfer, 6'1", 235 pounds. Spates, look, first team All-Pac-12 a season ago. A guy that just, look, he racks up tackles, 83 a season ago, 8 tackles for loss, very instinctive inside linebacker. Keep an eye out for him. I have him penciled in as the guy that's going to come off the board day 2 as well. Then you got Greg Penn III, 6'2", 235. The leading tackler, returning tackler, was 78 from a season ago. He's a guy that I think he's got some instincts to him. He's a guy that I think can get after the quarterback a little bit as well. So he's one of those guys that I think with a big year could potentially come out. But I truly think that he'll probably come back for one more year as well. Then you look at the secondary. Deuce Chestnut coming in from Syracuse, 5'11", 200 pounds, the junior. This is a guy who has really good ball skills. You saw that there with the Orange from a season ago. Then you have Denver Harris, the transfer from Texas A&M. I think a lot of teams wanted to get him. LSU ends up landing him. He's only a sophomore, but another guy with tremendous ball skills. Greg Brooks, the free safety, a guy that, he can play nickel, he can play the free safety position. He's 5'10", 187 pounds. To me, I look at him, he's a guy that, because of the ball skills, because of his ability to get after and make some plays, he'll be a guy to watch for over the top. And then Major Burns, one of the names in college football, 6'2", 190 pounds. This is a guy that's going to be physical. He's going to want to come up and hit you. I'm looking for him to elevate his game as well. A couple positions that we didn't really mention: defensive end, Ovi Ogufo. He's 6'3", 249 pounds, has 9 sacks in his career. Started his career at Notre Dame, went to Texas. Now he's at LSU, his third team. Want to see some consistency there from him. And then Savion Jones, 6'6", 268 pounds. He's a junior, had 6 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks a season ago. He'll be a guy to also watch for up front. Can he have a breakout year? If so, then he's another guy that we could potentially be talking about as a potential draft pick there for LSU. So obviously, offensively, Jayden Daniels is going to be the guy. He was also their leading rusher from a season ago, and the reason why I didn't mention Josh Williams, a running back, he's 5'9", 205, bowling ball type of kid, but you just didn't get the production on the ground. 536 yards, and 6 touchdowns, but just really didn't make the impact that I think people were expecting to see from him, especially in an LSU offense. You're expecting to see more of the running back play. Just didn't really get that out of Josh Williams, so that's really going to be a huge question mark there with LSU. If you turn them, force them to, you rush 3, drop 8, and you force Jayden Daniels to run around and make some plays, but you can't always have your quarterback just running for his life all the time. At some point, you're going to need to have a ground game, and Josh Williams is going to have to step up. I think that's going to be a huge question mark for their game, and really wanting to see how they're going to elevate things from here. So then, I think the next team really to talk about is going to be Tennessee. Tennessee, are they a top 10 team? They're kind of a fringe top 10 team if you ask me. But you look at Joe Milton, 6'5", 242 pounds. 971 yards, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, filling in for Hendon Hooker after he tore up his knee. He's got the weapons. Yes, Jalen Hyatt is gone, but he's got Brew McCoy, the 6'3", 221 pound senior, big, physical, the former Trojan. A guy that I think could be a fixture there for that offense. Josh Heupel, keep an eye out for him. Squirrel White, he's only a sophomore, so he'll be back for another year. 5'10", 165 pounds. He's so elusive, so explosive. Keep an eye out for him. And then Ramel Keaton, he's 6'3", 195 pounds. He's got some big weapons. That's one of the things that really stands out there. Those corners in the SEC, they're going to have to watch out for some really big dudes. Jeremiah Crawford, the left tackle, 6'5", 315 pounds. He's going to be asked to, really a tall task there at that left tackle spot, but he's a guy for me. I want to see what he can do. I want to see if he can elevate his game a little bit and potentially work his way into that mid-day 3 conversation. I think really the best offensive lineman, though, that they have is Javonte Spraggins, 6'3", 325, all SEC selection. He's a guy for me that, he's physical, very reliable, a guy that's going to drive his man down the field off the ball as a run defender, but can also handle his duties as a pass blocker. Jabari Small, the running back, 5'11", 213. Second leading rusher from a season ago, 734 yards and 13 touchdowns. A guy that's going to be physical, not a guy that's necessarily going to really run away from you, but he'll be an intriguing running back in this offense, kind of that change of pace type of a guy. You also have the leading running back from a season ago, Jalen Wright, junior, 875 yards and 10 touchdowns. So you've got a pair there of running backs that I think could end up doing some damage in that ground game. Defensively for Tennessee, they obviously they lost Byron Young, their defensive end. Tyler Barron's a guy, 6'5", 260 pounds. I think he has a chance to have a breakout year. Omari Thomas, the defensive tackle, he's another guy that I'm keeping an eye out for. He's somebody that I thought looked good at times, could be dominant up front. I think he'll be a strong strong potential to be an SEC, all-SEC performer. John Terry, look, 3.5 tackles for loss up front, 6'4", 325 pounds. You got some big physical dudes there on the interior. Roman Harrison is an undersized defensive end, but pairing up with Tyler Barron, that's something to keep an eye out for. Keenan Peely, the linebacker from BYU, 6'3", 238. He transfers in. He's going to end up handling one of those linebacker spots, but Aaron Beasley is going to be the guy. Number 24, 6'1", 225 pounds, had 3 sacks a season ago, but he had 13 tackles for loss, 76 tackles overall. A guy that looks to make plays behind the line of scrimmage, flies around and makes plays. He'll be really the guy that that defense is going to go as he goes. He's going to be the emotional leader and really the heartbeat of that defense. Their star back, Tamarian McDonald, 6'2", 206, another guy that has pretty good ball skills, decent range. On the back end, Danico Slaughter, their safety, 6 foot, 190 pounds, is another guy that is really going to be intriguing for me. Can Tennessee really take that next step as the power there in the SEC? I think you're going to be seeing the arm of Joe Milton offensively. I think defensively, Aaron Beasley is going to have to lead that defense. They're going to have to get some pass rush, consistent pass rush there from Harrison, Barrett, and company. That's going to be the big question mark, because if you're going to allow a lot of these different quarterbacks, even if Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe, look, if they get any time to throw the football in their well-coached offenses, even those guys are going to pick you apart just because of it's Georgia's offense, it's going to be Bama's offense. Even a Todd Monken-less Georgia offense is still going to be pretty darn efficient. Then you factor in a lot of these other quarterbacks in the SEC play that we've mentioned, because they are going to be seeing on September 30th, they're going to see Spencer Rattler. They are going to see Alabama there on the 21st of October. They're going to see Devin Leary in Kentucky on October 28th. They are going to see Georgia on November 18th. So they have to make sure that they've got everything dialed in. And, I think there's still some question marks there as to whether or not we're going to see any consistency, them running the football and then really putting pressure on the quarterback. So I think the next team that we really have to talk about is Ole Miss. This is going to be a fun team to watch. I think, really any Lane Kiffin-led offense is going to be fun. You look at Jackson Dart. I mentioned him, 6'2", 220 pounds. Came in from USC a season ago. Needs to cut down on the mistakes. Had 20 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions. A guy that's battled some injuries during his time as well. We know that the powerhouse Quinshon Judkins is going to be the dude. Over 1,500 yards on the ground, 16 touchdowns. Physical between the tackles, the guy that has that home run speed as well. Really the big question mark is going to be, what are we going to have in terms of the weapons? A bunch of seniors there, Jordan Watkins, Trey Harris, Dayton Wade, guys that we didn't really see making a huge impact, because look, it was all Malik Heath, it was all Jonathan Mingo. They're gone. So with those guys off the team now and in the league, you're going to have some other guys step up. Caden Price-Scorn, their tight end, 6'5", 255 pounds. He may be called upon to have a big season. I think when you look at the offensive line, there are also some potential question marks there up front. I think the center, Caleb Warren, 6'5", 310 pounds. Jeremy James, the right guard, 6'5", 305. Those are going to be the two guys to keep an eye out for. I think they have all SEC potential. I think that there's a chance that Caleb Warren could end up moving his way into that conversation as a top 10 center in the draft, and really boost his draft stock as well. I think from there, we have to go to the defense. Cedric Johnson, 6'3", 265 pounds, that defensive end. This is a dude that I think has potential to have a breakout year. 4 sacks from a season ago, but this is a guy, look, he's the guy that really is going to push things up front. JJ Pegues, 6'2", 315 pounds. He's going to be the other guy there at defensive tackle. Came over from Auburn. They got Monty Montgomery, the linebacker. I think this is a guy that's going to be moving in and is going to have a solid season for them. That was really a great pickup in the transfer portal. Ashante Sistrunk is going to be, they need to have him step up in a big way there at that linebacker position, 6'1", 230 pounds. But really, it's going to be the corners, Deontay Prince, He's 6 foot, 185 pounds. You got Isheem Young, the strong safety, 5'10", 215 pounds. In his first year since transferring in from Iowa State a season ago, I thought he had an up and down year. I'm expecting bigger things from him going forward. He's a guy that I'm looking at, a little undersized, in terms of the height, but really, packs a punch, very physical, a guy that's going to look to punish you a little bit. So I think there are some definite question marks with this team right now when you look at them. The weapons on offense, and then defensively, you've got Cedric Johnson, you've got Deontay Prince, Asheem Green, J.J. Pegues, Monty Montgomery. Montgomery's an undersized linebacker, but a guy that I think is still worthy of being drafted. 5'11", 220 pounds. You got Kari Coleman, a pass rusher at 6'2", 220 pounds, 4.5 sacks a season ago, but still a lot of holes, some question marks, guys elevating their game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this team can do, because I think there's potential there. I just don't know if there's going to be enough to really be able to move the needle for Ole Miss this year. But look, Lane Kiffin-led offenses, that's really where things get interesting. They've got Arkansas, they've got Texas A&M to battle there in the West behind Alabama and LSU. I don't know exactly where they're going to fall. Which leads us to South Carolina. And South Carolina, for me, is a team that's really going to be a lot of fun to watch because of, obviously, Spencer Rattler. What type of player are we going to get here? When he was terrific those last 3 games, he was absolutely phenomenal. We just don't know if we're going to see that year, play in and play out, game in and game out. And, look, they play North Carolina right off the bat. You're going to have Rattler competing against Drake May. What are we going to see with that game, right? And then you get Georgia in 2 weeks. Spencer Rattler, if you want to have a big name, if you want to be moving up the board in this loaded quarterback class, that's going to be a game that you need to step up. You're going to have to outplay Drake May in game 1. You're going to have to, hey, if you can beat Georgia early on, that's really a nice feather in your cap. Tennessee a couple of weeks later, you're going to have to outplay Joe Milton there as well. So there's a lot of competition. Obviously, at the end of the year, you're going to have Devin Leary in Kentucky, and then Clemson. Can you beat Clemson 2 years in a row? That's going to be a huge thing. But look, the 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Got to cut down on the mistakes. That's really the biggest thing. His number 1 target is going to be Juice Wells, 6'1", 210 pounds. Looks a lot like Deebo Samuel. The guy's going to be a vertical threat, but a weapon with the ball in his hands. 928 yards and 6 touchdowns. Really, those last 3 games, he was spectacular. Then they have Xavier Leggett, 6'3", 220 pounds. He's the bigger physical receiver there. Trey Knox, I want to say, did they get him from Arkansas? Trey Knox, 6'5", 250 pounds. He's going to be a nice weapon there in the passing game. Defensively, you have Jordan Strahan, 6'5", 245 pounds. This is a guy that I'm waiting to really see what he can do, because look, he missed most of the year due to injury. Really want to see what he can do coming back. But you do have Tonka Hemingway there at the other defensive end spot, 6'3", 290 pounds. This is he's athletic, led the team in sacks with 8 tackles for loss, but a guy that he knows how to get after the quarterback. He's a guy that's going to be a lot of fun, very athletic, a guy that uses his hands really well, very quick off the football. Guys that size should be moving that well. I think there's some positional versatility. He can play, a 5 technique. He can move in and be a 3 technique and a 43 defense. So he's a guy that I think a lot of teams are going to be looking out for. Mohamed Kaba, the linebacker, he's a junior now, 6'2", 235. He battled an injury for the entire season, so that's going to be a huge question mark as well. I think the safeties, DQ Smith and Nick Imamwari. Imamwari, look, he's a physical freak. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a huge dude. Both these guys were freshman All-American, and guys that I think we're going to see come off the board early in next year's draft. But when you look at the cornerback spot, the guy that really is going to be the leader back on that secondary is going to be Marcellus Dial. 6 foot, 190 pounds, 3 interceptions from a season ago, excellent ball skills. I believe he had double-digit pass breakups as well. So he's going to be a guy that I think there's going to be a lot of focus on. The question really is going to be the running back position. I think Marshawn Lloyd left. He's now at USC. So you've got Juju McDowell, the 5'9", 180-pound junior, only 219 yards on the ground a season ago. Not much of a factor. You do have Dakereon Joyner, who's back for another year. Very versatile athlete, a guy that can, he can play receiver, he can play running back. So you have that weapon as well. Amarian Brown will probably see some time, handling the football as a running back, really in a lot of those jet sweeps and things like that. The 5'9", 167-pound wide receiver, a guy that's going to be a slot weapon. So really want to see what what South Carolina can bring. I think there's a lot of potential. There are some question marks, some guys that are coming back from injury. But if you can get a Spencer Rattler that played like he did down the stretch, then that's really going to make South Carolina really tough. There's just a lot of question marks there, and are we going to see that guy really starting to elevate his game? Then you have Arkansas, and look, I thought a season ago Sam Pittman really did a great job with this team. I don't think people were expecting to see Arkansas, the powerhouse that they were, especially running the football. But Arkansas is a team that we just can't discount. They were 7-6. I know they were 3-5 in SEC play, but there were some tough games, some hard-fought losses. They only lost to A&M by 2. The Missouri game they should have won. LSU they lost by 3. Liberty they lost by 2. So there are a lot of games that they were right in. And obviously, I think this offense starts with Rocket Sanders. You have to talk about Rocket Sanders first and foremost. A guy that is just a dynamic running back. Look, he started out as a receiver and moves to the running back position. And, I think for him, over 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. Also was one of the leading receivers. He's actually the leading receiver coming back with 28 catches, 271 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, when you've got KJ Jefferson, the new offensive coordinator, especially with Kendall Briles moving to TCU, you've got Dan Enos who comes in, pro-style guy. Now he kind of runs a run-pass option, kind of more of an RPO, which I think is going to help with KJ Jefferson. I still think because he has some of that pro-style offense, that's going to really help KJ Jefferson. I think Jefferson needs to clean up some things. 24 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. He's a guy for me that I think needs to continue to hone things as a passer. See the entire field, make the right decision, get rid of the football. He's a guy. Look, they've already said that they're going to be under center, shotgun, pistol. You're going to see some of that offense that we can really translate to the next level. So I think that's going to give us a better idea of really how KJ Jefferson is going to transition. He's not going to have the receivers, won't have the likes of Jayden Hazelwood or Matt Landers at the receiver spot. So we're going to have some new guys stepping in, and that's really going to be the big thing is can he develop that relationship with a lot of new receivers. We see that it takes a while for a lot of quarterbacks to develop that chemistry, so that's going to be a huge question mark for him. But look, he's got some veterans up front along the interior of that line. Obviously they lost some like Dalton Wagner at the tackle spot. They also lost Ricky Stromberg, their center. Bo Limmer kicking over from guard to the pivot. He's a guy that I think can really elevate his game. He's going to be a lot of fun there at that center spot. I think he's a guy that's going to be not only a draftable prospect, but because of the versatility to play both center and guard, we're going to see his draft stock rise. Brady Latham, he'll be their left guard. I think he's another guy that has all SEC capability there up front. But a lot of questions, especially at the tackle positions. But when this team is going to be running the football, if they can really play downhill and run that football, because look, KJ Jefferson has over 1,400 yards on the ground in his career at 19 touchdowns. So he's a guy that knows how to make plays with the football in his hands. Defensively, look, they've got a lot of, they only returned 4 starters from a season ago, but Landon Jackson's going to be a guy to watch out for sure. Zach Williams is another guy, pass rusher extraordinary. Landon Jackson's just so big. He's 6'7", 269, a guy that can also drop into coverage. Want to see some more consistency from him getting after the quarterback, though. I think Al Walcott, a transfer from Baylor to that nickel spot now there with the Hogs. 6'2", 215. He's a guy that likes to fly around and make some plays. Obviously, the corner, Dwight McLaughlin, LSU transfer from a season ago, 6'2", 190 pounds, excellent ball skills. He's the guy that's going to be in that conversation as a potential top 10 corner in this draft class. And then Hudson Clark is going to be your veteran leadership there at the safety spot. McLaughlin with the 4 interceptions. I want to say Clark had a couple himself. 6'2", 185 pounds. A guy that's going to be really flying around, looking to light guys up and make some plays on the back end of the defense as well. So really looking forward to seeing that happen. Antonio Greer, I just saw this. He transfers in. I want to say he was at USF with the Bulls. He's now at that linebacker position. So he's going to be somebody that I think could potentially help elevate that game, especially when you lose Drew Sanders and Bumper Pool. You're going to have to replace that, and that's asking a lot. So that's really going to be something that I think a lot of teams are going to look to try to take advantage of early is what can we do against that linebacking core. Texas A&M, the Aggies. This is a team that I think is going to be, it's going to be interesting to say the least. I think there's a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football. Some question marks on offense. Obviously, when you've got Jimbo Fisher there, a lot of pressure on him. You've got Bobby Petrino as his offensive coordinator now. DJ Durkin is his defensive coordinator. So a lot of expectations with this group. Connor Wigman is going to be your quarterback. Max Johnson is the backup right now. Wigman, just 896 yards a season ago, but 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Played in only the 5 games, but he's a guy that shows that he can get the job done. Look, he's got Aeneas Smith to throw the football to, the converted running back. He's a dynamic weapon, can really be a weapon in the slot. But then you have Evan Stewart, over 600 yards, 2 touchdowns from a season ago. But then Moose Muhammad III. This is a guy that I think really started to elevate his game. 6'1", I think 195 pounds. Evan Stewart's only a sophomore, so he'll be back. But Moose Muhammad is a junior. Smith is a senior. I think Moose Muhammad with a big year could potentially decide to come out and enter the draft. I think he's a playmaker. He's a guy that can end up making a lot of noise. I think he'll be a lot of fun to watch. Noah Thomas, another sophomore, 6'6", 195 pounds. There aren't a ton of teams that can sit there and boast 4 wideouts there, and really just the versatility there. I think Muhammad is a guy that could be a vertical threat on the outside. Evan Stewart, another big physical receiver. Noah Thomas is huge at 6'6". Aeneas Williams is going to be your slot guy. So, there's a lot of versatility there. Up front on the offensive line, the center, Bryce Foster, went down to an injury. I think it was an ACL from a season ago. He's back. And you want to talk about physicality. This dude is tough as nails, along the interior of that line. Same goes for Layden Robinson. I think this is a guy for me that is absolutely going to be an all-SEC guy. He's very physical at the point of attack. Think Kenyon Green, although he's not going to be a first rounder, but a guy that can definitely move guys around. He's 6'4", 325 pounds. He's going to be fun to watch. And then Ruben Fothery. He's a junior. He's 6'8", 330 pounds. The big thing there is he's just going to have to watch that leverage. He's so tall and so long. That pad level can definitely creep up on you. So that's something that he's going to have to work on for sure. Looking at the defense, though, this is going to be an interesting group. You've got McKinley Jackson, 6'2", 325 pounds. He has a chance to come off the board in round number 1. I think there's some explosiveness there up front. He's a guy that moves really well, does a great job shedding blockers. He's a guy that can end up being an absolute stud up front, but he also missed 4 games due to injury, so you're waiting to see what's going to happen there. I think you've got Walter Nolan, you've got Shamar Turner. Walter Nolan is only a sophomore there at the defensive tackle spot. Shamar Turner's a junior at D tackle. Fidel Diggs. He also missed time from a season ago, so this is going to be a group that we're going to have to keep an eye out for. Younger guys, but I think Jackson, to me, like I said, is a guy that could potentially work his way into round number 1 if things go right. I think he's a guy that really is going to be interesting to see what happens there. Edgerrin Cooper, Chris Russell are going to be the linebackers there. Both about 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds. Guys that can fly around, make some plays. but I'm looking for some consistency out of that group. At corner, you've got guys who are proven with ball skills, in Tyreek Chappell, the junior, and then Tony Grimes, the senior, coming over from North Carolina. I think Grimes, there's a lot of hype around him. I don't think he had the best year last year, so now he's transferred from UNC to A&M. And I think pairing up with Tyreek Chappell, look, he paired with Storm Duck with the Tar Heels. I think he and Chappell are going to be fun to watch. And then you've got Damani Richardson. I think a guy who could end up being a top 5, top 6 safety in this draft class. A guy that I think could be a heavy hitter. He's the leading tackler, returning tackler, decided to come back. He's a team leader, the emotional leader, on the defensive side of the football. So, Damani Richardson, 6'1", 215 pounds. I think he's probably a lock as a day 2 pick there at that safety position. But A&M, to me, I think there's still too many questions. I think you're relying on a lot of young guys, and I think that the young guys can end up making a lot of plays for you, but I think it's also going to get you into trouble. I think next we have to talk about Kentucky, the Wildcats, right? Obviously with Will Levis leaving, they had a hole there at the quarterback position. That's filled with Devin Leary. Devin Leary battled an injury from a season ago, but this is a guy that coming in now. He's not only a veteran, but a guy that I think was playing at a high level for a time there with the Wolfpack, and people were talking about him as a potential, draftable, not only a draftable prospect, but a guy that can lead a pro-style offense. And look, he's got Liam Cohen as his offensive coordinator, a guy that he ran the Kentucky offense. Ran the LA Rams offense there, understands how to get things done at the next level. Leary, he torn pectoral muscle. I know what that's like, trying to rebound from that. So Leary, though, I think he'll be out 100%. He's going to have a pair of freshman All-Americans coming back for their sophomore seasons, Barry and Brown and Dane Key, guys that just under 1,150 receiving yards between the two of them a season ago. Keep an eye out there for them. Chris Rodriguez is gone at the running back spot. They get Ray Davis, the senior, coming over from Vanderbilt. I think that's also a nice pickup. 5'10", 216 pounds, a guy that can be very physical between the tackles. This is a guy already a 1,000-yard back. He's going to be able to make some plays. And then obviously Tavion Robinson, another guy at 5'11", 194 pounds, a guy that can end up making some plays there on the outside as well. So you've got a loaded receiving core. You've got a solid running back there. And then Jordan Dingle, he was a freshman a season ago. He's coming in there at that tight end spot. So a lot of weapons. And then on the offensive line, you've got some veterans there as well. Kenneth Horsey and Eli Cox at the guard spots. Jeremy Flax, the right tackle. These are all guys that I'm going to keep an eye on. Want to see what they can do. And then you've got the Northern Illinois transfer Marcus Cox, also a senior, coming in from, like I said, from the Huskies there, Northern Illinois, 6'5", 311 pounds. All guys that, right around 6'3", and about 310 pounds there on the interior of that line. They also get Cortland Ford from USC. They'll probably end up playing that right tackle position, 6'6", 305. So they've got good veteran quality there up front to protect Devin Leary. So with the weapons, the offensive line, Kentucky's a team that's going to be a sleeper team to watch out for. The biggest question mark is going to be on that defense. I think they lost a lot with the linebacker play. DeAndre Square and Jaquez Jones, not to mention Jordan Wright, all gone. So that's something that is going to definitely hurt. I think when you look at Deion Walker, the defensive tackle, freshman All-American from a season ago, he's really the main attraction in terms of NFL draft prospects. He's 6'6", 348 pounds, just a massive individual. Trevon Ribka at the defensive end spot, 6'4", 276 pounds. He's another guy to keep an eye out for, a guy that I think got a lot of good experience last season. He'll be a guy that's looking to try to make a breakout as well. You got J.J. Weaver. This guy, all SEC, a guy that I swear seems like he's been there with the Wildcats for quite a while. Just 3 sacks from a season ago, but he's a guy to keep an eye out for. He's really the emotional leader of that defense. I think they end up going as he does. And then you got De'Eric Jackson, another senior linebacker, 6'1", 245 pounds. he's going to be a guy for me that obviously he's got the big shoes to fill, but I think he's got some of that veteran quality to him. Just really want to see what he can do as he elevates that game. The big question mark is going to be in the secondary. Can they cover some guys? They're getting J.Q. Hardaway from Cincinnati. He's going to pair up with Andrew Phillips. Look, the veteran presence just is lacking there in the secondary. They've got Jordan Love at the safety, 6'2", 195 pounds, a sophomore. But I think really where they're going to get exposed is on the back end of that defense. I think the front seven is going to be solid. I think there's going to be a lot of talent on the offensive end. But I think they're going to give up some plays on the back end of that defense. So they're really going to have to work on getting after the quarterback to help that secondary out, because I think that secondary is going to get exposed left and right. How about Florida? Let's talk about Florida next. Florida, the Gators, obviously Billy Napier did not want to have the season that he had last year, 6-7 in his first year. People were already talking about him potentially getting fired. That obviously didn't happen, but I think the pressure's on. I think it really is. You bring in Graham Mertz from Wisconsin, 6'3", 214 pounds, just under 5,400 career passing yards. This was a guy, look, he battled there in Wisconsin. I think he struggled in the Big Ten, with consistency. Also struggled in the spring game as well. So I think that's going to be the big question mark, is can he elevate his game? Because he's got Jack Miller III behind him. You've got Montrell Johnson, the running back. I think he'll be a highlight there on defense. 841 yards on the ground and 10 touchdowns. I think the highlight in the receiving core is going to be Ricky Pearsall. 33 catches, 661 yards, 5 touchdowns. But I think there's going to be some question marks, obviously up front. Kingsley Egwakin has some talent there at that center spot, but man, he also gave up a lot of, gave up some sacks, a lot of penalties as well. I think there's going to be some question marks there. I think Austin Barber, the tackle, as a redshirt freshman a season ago, played really well. They're getting Micah Masqua from Baylor, which you needed to have happen considering both Ethan White and Michael Tarquin are gone. But the offensive line, can they gel? Can they come together? That's going to be a big question mark. I look at it, there are a lot of question marks. They only returned 3 starters from a season ago. I think the offense there could be some real tough sledding there for the Gators. Defensively, I think Princely Umamilan is going to be the star. 4.5 sacks from a season ago, 6'5", 245 pounds, a guy that already plays well against the run. If he can be consistent against the pass, I think he's a guy that's going to move up draft boards quickly. I think the cornerback, Jason Marshall, 6'1", 197 pounds, he's going to be the highlight there in the secondary. He's a guy that I think everyone needs to keep an eye out for. Big play potential. But then, obviously, they also bring in a guy like R.J. Moten, from Michigan, 6 foot, 221 pounds, the junior. This is a guy I think is going to be physical on the back end. But you've got him, you've got Marshall, and then a very young group on the back end. So if I'm Florida, I think you're going to get a look at a lot of young guys. But I really worry about getting that exposure. Getting exposed there in the SEC. I think there's going to be a rude awakening there. And if I'm Billy Napier, I'm worried about my job. We start off, in Utah against the Utes, Cam Rising and company. That's going to be tough. A couple weeks later, you're playing Tennessee. And then you go to Kentucky on September 30th. And then South Carolina on October 14th, followed up by Georgia. And then Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and then Florida State to finish things out. If I'm Billy Napier, if I'm losing to Utah, Tennessee, Kentucky, then you're talking about potentially a 2-3 start. Then after potentially a win against Vandy, you're 3-3. You go in. You play South Carolina, Georgia. You have a potential to lose those 2 games. Arkansas and LSU as well. Billy Napier, if the season goes the way I'm thinking it might, he may not make it to the end of the season. They may ultimately send him packing and out of Gainesville when it's all said and done. I think this group, when you look at it, there are a lot of question marks. But I think with Umamilan, with Jason Marshall, you look at obviously with Tennessee, with Kentucky, with South Carolina, Georgia, etc. there's going to be the potential to see a lot of really good tape for the two of them. So I think that's something that I think when you're talking about the draft, looking forward to this group, I think those are going to be some of the bright spots, and that's really kind of be what I'm going to be leaning on when I watch Florida, is to really see the play of those two guys in particular. How about Auburn? Let's talk about Auburn. Let's talk about Hugh Freeze. His first year at War Eagle. Obviously, Brian Harsin, things didn't work out there. They just announced that their quarterback is not going to be Robbie Ashford. TJ Finley left there as well. It's actually going to be Peyton Thorne, who transferred in from Michigan State. I think Peyton Thorne had some success there in the Big Ten. He'll be a guy to watch out for sure in that passing attack. He's going to be somebody that I think can elevate things, especially in a Hugh Freeze-led offense. The receiving group, obviously they've got FIU transfer Rivaldo Fairweather. He's a guy that 6'4", 251, only a junior, but a guy with a big year. We could be talking about him in that tight end group. Coy Moore, Javarius Johnson, a couple of other receivers. But look, these are guys that weren't starters a season ago. Javarius Johnson, just 493 yards and 3 touchdowns as the leading receiver. Jarquez Hunter is a dude. 5'10", 210 pounds, and 6.5 yards per carry. This is a guy that I think Hugh Freeze wants to get him the football, let him go. Robbie Ashford was your leading rusher a season ago with 710 yards and 7 touchdowns. Hugh Freeze is going to make sure that running back position, that's going to be where it's at and where the focus is going to be. Obviously you bring in Brian Batty as well from USF. Ran for over 1,100 yards a season ago with the Bulls. Also an All-American kick returner in 2021. So I think the running back position is going to be set. That's really going to be the strength. Peyton Thorne developing some chemistry there with the passing group. Nick Martiner just coming in from Cincinnati, the big 6'6" receiver. So that's going to be a guy that I think they could also utilize in the passing attack. But look, the left tackle, they've got Dylan Wade coming in from Tulsa. They got a center in East Carolina's Avery Jones, and then Gunnar Britton from Western Kentucky. Those are going to be 3 guys, all transfers that I think Hugh Freeze did a great job there. Wade is a little undersized. I think a guy that's probably going to kick into inside at the next level. Avery Jones, 6'4", 302. Keep an eye out for him. And then same thing with Gunnar Britton. I think this is a guy 6'6", 305, a big year at that right tackle spot. I thought that he was one of the more highly coveted offensive tackles in the transfer portal. Keep an eye out for him. Really getting to see that play at the FBS level. Defensively, I think Marcus Harris is going to be a stud. 6'3", 294 pounds. He's a guy that really stands out to me up front. A guy that I think is going to put some pressure on the quarterback. Had a couple of sacks from a season ago. He'll be a guy to watch out for, just really pushing the pressure up front. A lot of transfers on this group. You've got Justin Rogers from Kentucky. Justin Rogers, 6'3", 340 pounds at defensive tackle. He's a big dude. You got Mosiah Nasili Kite. He's a guy that can put some pressure on the quarterback. He's coming in from Maryland. Lawrence Johnson from Purdue is another dude up front that I think can get after the quarterback a little bit. So you're upgrading there, and guys that are veterans, guys that I think we can end up talking about as potential. You're showing some of that potential to make things happen and actually move on to the next level. I think Cam Riley is going to be an interesting guy. 6'5", 237 pounds. The junior was the leading tackler from a season ago with 66. He'll be someone that I think we need to watch, keep an eye out for sure. And then in that secondary, the secondary is really going to be the strength of this defense. Nehemiah Pritchett, 6'1", 182 pounds, a dude that has excellent ball skills, good size, good length. He's pairing up with DJ James, another guy that I think is solid. Look, they named him the spring's top defender, actually. And 6'1", 170 pounds. The star back, Keontae Scott, 6'4", 186 pounds. he's somebody to watch out for. And then, the safeties, Jalen Simpson had a couple of interceptions from a season ago, and Zion Puckett. This group, I think, is going to be really, like I said, the big strength on that back end. The big question mark is going to be, can they put pressure on the quarterback consistently? You can't rely on Marcus Harris. He's going to be a guy that's going to collapse the pocket. You've got guys like Jason Jones and Justin Rogers, the big physical dudes up front that are going to eat up a lot of blocks. Who's going to be the guy that's going to actually be able to put some pressure on the quarterback? If they can't do that, then I think that's going to be a huge question mark. But I think offensively, when you've got Peyton Thorne running a Philip Montgomery-led offense, if you can build some of that chemistry with some of the newcomers and then really get the ball to Jarquez Hunter and Brian Batty, I think there could be something there offensively for the Auburn Tigers. How about let's talk about Missouri next. Missouri Tigers. This is a team that kind of an up and down year. I think when they were good, they really showed that they could hang with just about anybody. They actually made things interesting there against Georgia, losing 26-22, but they had a lead for most of that game. Some frustrating losses. They lose to Auburn. I believe that one was an OT. I think that was a fumble out of the back of the end zone. Florida, they lose by a touchdown. Kentucky, they lose by 4. So this is a team that was very close. They're 6-7. Eli Drinkwitz, I think the quarterback play has to step up. They've got Brady Cook for another year, and with Cook, over 2,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, but 7 interceptions. Struggled, distributing the ball at times. They also bring in Jake Garcia, the well-traveled Jake Garcia, guy that once committed to USC. Then he goes to Miami. Now he's here with Mizzou. What are we going to see there? There's off-season surgery for Cook, so Cook Garcia ended up taking the helm. Not really sure what's going to happen there at that quarterback spot. It'll be interesting to see what happens. They've got a dynamic receiver in Luther Burden, just 375 yards and 6 touchdowns a season ago. The quarterback play really was a disappointment. So we didn't get to see a lot from Luther Burden, expecting to see big things from him, especially with Dominic Lovett leaving for Georgia. You've got Theo Weiss from Oklahoma to make some plays on the outside. Dennis Jackson from Ole Miss as well. Then you got Mookie Cooper. So I think you got a decent receiving group. Theo Weiss is really the one guy in that receiving core that's going to be draft eligible to keep an eye out for. I thought that he kind of underachieved there at OU, so hopefully he can step up and be a target there. Cody Schrader, this is an interesting dude. 5'9", 214 pounds, was a physical runner for them, 744 yards and 9 touchdowns, a transfer from Truman State. It's my dad's alma mater. And so, he's a guy that I think is a guy that people can really pull for there in the state of Missouri. A guy transfer from a D2 school there and really leading the team on the ground. Keep an eye out for him. I think the offensive line, this is an area that's been a strength for them. You look at Javon Foster, one of the better tackles in the league, 6'5", 319 pounds, big number 76. Over 20-plus starts under his belt. He's going to be an all-SEC tackle, a guy that we're going to be talking about potentially in the top 10 in that tackle class. Xavier Delgado, I think, is draft eligible as well. 6'4", 329 pounds. I think there's a chance that we could see his name called on day 3 of the draft. So there are some things to like on that offensive side of the football for Mizzou. I think defensively, who's going to put pressure on the quarterback? That's going to be the big question mark. When you lose guys like Trajan Jeffcoat and you lose a guy like Isaiah McGuire, who's going to pick up the slack for them? That's going to be big question marks. You got Johnny Walker Jr., you got Joe Moore, a couple of defensive ends that could potentially step in there. And then really, where are you going to play Darius Robinson? Is he going to be at defensive end? Is he going to be at defensive tackle? 6'5", 296 pounds. I think he's the guy that's going to be the breakout star there, the all-SEC candidate because of that versatility, because he can put pressure on the quarterback. 3.5 sacks from a season ago. Christian Williams at defensive tackle, 6'2", 314 pounds. I think he does a decent job holding the point of attack. And then you've got Jayden Jernigan up front. He's going to be another guy that I think could be an X factor for them, because if he can hold things down in the on the interior of that line, Darius Robinson can kick outside, play that 4-3 defensive end, and the move inside on passing downs. Keep an eye out there. Really the big stud, though, is Tyron Hopper. This guy was, he transferred in from Florida, and a guy that really was the leader of that defense. 6'2", 221 pounds, flies around and makes plays, as an interior linebacker. Excellent vision, a guy that's going to play on Sundays for sure. Then Chad Bailey, 6 foot, 234 pounds. He's another guy that could be an all-SEC linebacker. Keep an eye out for number 33 there on defense. And then the secondary. Look, the secondary is sneaky good. You've got Chris Abrams-Drain, who's one of the better corners, excellent ball skills, a guy that's going to make a lot of plays there on the outside, 5'11", 178 pounds, only a junior. Ennis Rakestraw, another guy that has, I think, double-digit pass breakups as well, at 6 foot, 176 pounds. Their safeties, Dalen Carnell, only a sophomore, but he's 6'2", 218. He's physical. You got Jalen Carleys at 6'3", 219 pounds. The senior, he was a leading tackler from a season ago with 81. He and Carnell actually led the team with 3 interceptions apiece as well. And then you have Joseph Charleston, a guy that transferred in from Clemson a year ago. I think this secondary is going to be underrated, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. When you look at this team, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Blake Baker and that defense. This is going to be the second time that we're going to get to see Baker's defense. And look, the Tigers allowed 8.7 fewer points under him in his first year. So really, what can they do to kind of move the needle even further? Thank you, Athlon Sports, for that number, that figure. I think that really is telling there. If they can get things going offensively, get that quarterback play. That's really the biggest thing, because they've got the talent up front. They've got the talent at the skill position. I honestly believe you've got some guys that will be playing on Sunday on the offensive line. Theo Weiss, if he has a big year, could potentially get drafted. Then defensively, Darius Robinson, Tyron Hopper, Chad Bailey. If the corners, Abrams-Drain and Rakestraw, decide to come out, Carleys, Charleston, they've got a lot of guys that could hear their names called in next year's draft. So I think Missouri is one of those teams that we don't really know exactly what's going to happen with them. I think they have potential to make a lot of noise, but it really comes down to that quarterback play. And is Brady Cook going to be the answer? Can Jake Garcia really take the helm? That's going to be a huge question mark. Mississippi State. It's really sad. Zach Arnett taking over for Mike Leach. Obviously the tragic loss of a legendary coach. In December. It's going to be tough sledding, but the emotional journey there for the team. I think that's really. It's going to be a season for the Pirates, so keep an eye out there. We saw in the bowl game against Illinois, 19-10 final. They played with heavy hearts, but they ended up coming out with a victory. Will Rogers, 6'2", 210 pounds, a guy who has a rubber arm, over 3,900 yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. This guy knows how to run that offense, over 10,000 career passing yards. Already the Bulldogs' all-time leader in that area. Expect to see a lot of him throwing the football around. Of course, Jaquavius Marks, 582 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground from a season ago, 5'10", 205 pounds. A guy that wasn't really asked to do a lot as a running back, but he's a guy that I think this year we want to kind of see what he can do on the ground. If we're going to ultimately talk about him transitioning to the next level. Jerquarius Spivey, the tight end, 6'5", 240 pounds. They're going to need a guy that's going to need to stretch the middle of that defense. So I think he's a guy that, with a big year, he'll be someone to keep an eye out for. Ladietrich Griffin, 5'10", 185 pounds. He's another guy, a weapon there on the outside that I think we can get excited about as well. I think he's going to be kind of the focal point of that passing attack on the outside. The offensive line, they returned 3 starters. Stephen Lasoya, Cameron Jones, Cole Smith, actually 4. Nick Jones on the left side as well. I left him out. So they've got some experience up front. These are guys that, I think Cole Smith may end up being the best of the bunch, possibly. We'll have to just kind of see. It's kind of difficult to really evaluate them in this air raid type of an offense. So really want to see what they can do this year. Defensively, in that 34 defense that they have, you got Jayden Crumedy and Nathan Pickering up front. Those two guys, I think, have the potential, to make some noise this year. These are two veterans up front, guys that know how to get after the quarterback a little bit, push the pocket, excellent run defenders. Jet Johnson is really the leader there at that linebacker position. He and Nathaniel Watson, those are two guys. I think when you talk about that linebacker spot, Nathaniel Watson 6'2", 240, Jet Johnson 6'2", 230. These are two guys that, they fit well into what they want to do defensively. Jet Johnson, 115 tackles from a season ago. Nathaniel Watson, more the pass rusher with 6 interceptions. I think DeCamarion Richardson, I think he's the senior. He'll be the guy to watch out for there on the back end. You have to replace Emmanuel Forbes and the 6 pick sixes in his career. A lot of young guys on the back end. Sean Preston, the safety, is probably going to be called upon with Richardson to really elevate that secondary. Esaias Furge, we got to see him quite a bit a season ago as well. But I think there's, just with the one returning starter on the back end in Richardson, that's going to be a group that could potentially get exploited there in SEC play. And then finally, we have the Vanderbilt Commodores. Unfortunately, this is a team that's kind of bringing up the rear in the SEC. Clark Lee, I think there's some bright spots with Vanderbilt. And I think there's some things to really build upon from a season ago. Look, they're 5-7. They battled Missouri. They only lost by 3, only lost by 11 to South Carolina. This is just, unfortunately, a team that's just overmatched in the SEC. They've got a really nice receiver in Will Shepherd, 6'3", 195 pounds. He's going to be the guy that is really, I think, has day 2 qualities. He has exceptional catch radius, a guy who is very smooth, excellent route runner, tremendous hands. I think he's definitely an all SEC caliber wide receiver. Season ago, 60 receptions, 776 yards, 9 touchdowns. He is going to have AJ Swan throwing the football to him again. But a lot of young guys on the offense. I think that's really something that stands out for sure. When you look at that group, defensively, they return 4 starters, and it's really on the back end of that defense. So that's really the biggest concern. Is just all the youth, and I think with Clark Lee, that defense is going to have to really shut down some of the big plays. The fact that they've got veteran leadership on the back end of that defense, Jalen Mahoney to Ricky Wright. Wright had 3 interceptions a season ago. CJ Taylor, the anchor, had 59 tackles last year. So that's really going to be the group. CJ Taylor, kind of an undersized linebacker, 6'1", 201. Really, he's another safety. But Ricky Wright is the guy to really watch out for. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. Like I said, had 3 interceptions a season ago. I think he's the guy that can make some noise on the back end of the defense. Could end up being a draftable prospect when it's all said and done as well. So that is the SEC, kind of breaking things down, taking a look at not only all of the prospects, but also kind of what I think is going to happen in the SEC, how things are going to play out, who's going to be standing tall at the top. I think Georgia and Alabama, there are some vulnerabilities there. I think there's some question marks, some really spectacular quarterback play from Jayden Daniels, Spencer Rattler, KJ Jefferson, and I think we could have some upsets brewing there in the SEC. Joe Milton there at Tennessee, another guy that could have things going. Kentucky, I think, could be up and coming. Missouri could surprise some teams as well. And then, with Lane Kiffin, you never know what Kiffin's going to have cooking there in Oxford. So when we talk about the games to watch out for, I think September 3rd, LSU, Florida State. We know what happened last year. Florida State won by 1. Jayden Daniels potentially getting his revenge. He'll get to go up against Jordan Travis, that head-to-head matchup at the quarterback position. And can LSU stop Jared Verse? That's going to be a huge question mark there. I think with LSU, the passing attack, I really want to see Fentrell Cypress take on Malik Nabers. That's going to be a fun matchup as well. You get to Texas and Alabama. We know what happened with Texas, nearly beating Bama a season ago. The quarterback position, look, there is no Bryce Young. I think there's a chance that Alabama could be vulnerable in that game, getting Texas early on. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? If it's Quinn Ewers, I think because he's going to be a healthy quarterback, I think we're going to see the best out of him. I think defensively they've got some playmakers there on the back end for the Longhorns as well. But Bama, really the big thing is going to be, can you put pressure on the quarterback? Are we going to see Dallas Turner elevate his game? Are we also going to see Chris Braswell do some things? I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to shut down one side, whether that's Xavier Worthy or A.D. Mitchell. You're really going to have to then see Jatavian Sanders there for Texas kind of step up. He'll be going up against some of those unproven linebackers. LSU gets to play Ole Miss. I think that'll be fun. Brian Kelly going up against Lane Kiffin. Again, I think this is a game that Jayden Daniels, if he wants to elevate his draft stock, another big win there against Ole Miss early on, especially if they can beat Florida State and then end September with the win there against Ole Miss. I think then LSU is really going to be riding high from that game. A&M taking on Arkansas. I think Arkansas, this is going to be a game that, KJ Jefferson can really start elevating his stock, can really start talking about him as a proven quarterback. What can he do? Can they really shut things down there with Jimbo Fisher and company? Tennessee and Alabama on October 21st. This could be a coming out party for Joe Milton, potentially taking down Alabama. If Tennessee takes him down for the second year in a row, I think that'll be interesting. Again, you know how I feel with Alabama. I think there's some question marks there. There's some holes. Can Tennessee put pressure on the quarterback? That's going to be a huge question mark. I think Aaron Beasley's going to have a big game there. LSU takes on Alabama on November 4th. I think if Alabama doesn't get knocked off by Texas or Tennessee, this could be the game. Again, Jayden Daniels. We keep talking about him, but that's going to be the guy. What's going to happen there? And then Mason Smith. We haven't talked about him yet, but Mason Smith could really be the guy that pushes the pocket. We saw what Jalen Carter meant for Georgia. Can Mason Smith make that same impact and stamp his ticket not only in the first round of the draft, but in the top 10? Obviously, you've got the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Will Rogers, that's a team that could be riding high offensively. I think that'll be an interesting matchup. A&M taking on LSU. And I didn't talk about it with A&M. They also take on Alabama on November 7th. The big thing is going to be, can Connor Wigman spread that football around? They've got the receiving talent. That's going to be fun to watch. I think that Bama game, first and foremost, on November 7th. You're going to see Kool-Aid McKinstry go up against Evan Stewart. He's going to get to go up against Moose Muhammad, Aeneas Smith. Those are three receivers that are legit NFL prospects. If Kool-Aid McKinstry can shut those guys down, that's going to be huge. Then you move on to that LSU game there on November 25th. LSU could be making a play for the West Division title at that point, so that's going to be a huge game. And then obviously you've also got the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. Hugh Freeze going up against Nick Saban. Peyton Thorne in that offense. I think that's going to be interesting. Jarquez Hunter, what can they do with that ground game? I think that's going to be interesting to see. I think Bama ends up coming away with the victory, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people expect. So that's kind of my breakdown there with the SEC. Some of the games to watch, some of the matchups to watch, and then obviously all of the draft eligible prospects to watch as well. So next time we'll be talking about the Big Ten. No, we won't be talking about USC and UCLA. We'll save them for the Pac-12, their final year in the disintegrated Pac-12. But there are a lot of teams in Big Ten play to talk about, and that's who we'll talk about next. If the SEC is the number one conference going into the season, then the Big Ten is a close second. And so